Hi there, this is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Key Largo. Welcome everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Once again, if you are on the Spreaker app, you can chat with us live. And today's episode, you can see right there, I learned something recently about episode listings, and that was very informative to me. So, starting on June 1st, it is now May 18th. Uh, my restaurant, I am going back to work at my restaurant, the Catch Restaurant in Key Largo at mile marker 102 on the ocean side. It's open 12 to 8, and the bar's opened and all that, but you can't sit at the bar. And the governor he just announced that hotels will be able to open at 50% capacity on June 1st. Our checkpoint on the Overseas Highway and on Card Sound Road, the two entrances and exits on the Keys will be exits. Wow, what the hell? I've been doing this for 3 years. I can't pronounce exit. They will be open to travelers, and hotels will be, as of June 1st, that right now will be open to 50% capacity. And I've been checking online. There's some really great deals, but there's capacity is limited right now. There's very few rooms left online to get. But the weather's beautiful. You might as well come down here. There's not a lot of people on the roads, but I imagine on June 1st, it may be either like floodgates, people dying to get in, or just be a trickle. But we do have people that have rental properties that have been, just as anecdotal, they've been coming in. And today, as I said, I am going into work, and I have several. My concerns are not for my health. I'm not worried about that. I've been around. I've been to stores and things like that. I use protection, PPE. I use a face buff or a mask. And most people I deal with or get within distance of are wearing a mask also. And that's supposed to reduce transmission. And I wash my hands frequently. But what I've noticed when I was out, since the restaurants down here, at least in Monroe County, started to open over a week ago, is that just with local traffic, there is very little business in the restaurants, not even reaching 25% capacity, which was mandated up until up today. Today it's 50%. So if you are a restaurant that goes up to 150 people, you will be allowed to have 75 people with proper distancing. But what I've seen down here is about 3 to 4 people, 3 to 4 vehicles. And in most of these places, there should have been maybe 10 or 15 vehicles to get to that 25%. And that's at smaller restaurants and larger restaurants. One of those local eateries is very popular on Sunday for brunch. I went by it and there was only 3 cars outside. So that is disheartening. And as a bartender, not having people sitting at your bar is kind of like a bit of a buzzkill. You got to go to tables, which, you got to do what you got to do, and I'll be doing that. But another concerns I had was that I haven't bartended in over 2 months. So there, I don't know if it's my age or whatever. I seem to, I'll see if I forgot some of the skills I had. How to interact with people, remember people's names. On the best of times, for me, knowing a lot of people, I'm not a really good name recognition guy. I'm great with history and stuff like that, but name recognition, I'm really slow, unless I'm interacting with someone on a regular basis. Even people with the same name I have, for the same first name. So we're starting back, and we got reduced hours. It's going to be, I think we're only going to be open like 12 to 8. So the longest shift we have, I have 2 full shifts, which are going to be 10 hours, coming in an hour before and staying an hour after closing. Um, and we're not going to have that interaction with the people sitting around the bar, be at the tables. I'll be wearing a mask or a buff, and I'm, I don't know how much the traffic. I imagine today it'll be pretty good for the people that wanted to come to our particular restaurant for today, maybe tomorrow. But after that, I don't know what's going to happen. So we will see what happens there. I don't know how. I'm not going to speculate whether people are going to adhere to the guidelines, but since we are the establishment that's opening, we're responsible for that. And if we don't follow the guidelines, if we don't have proper social distancing, or we exceed the capacity, that fine would be on us or the owners. So I'll be vigilant there, and I'm not looking to cause any trouble. I'm concerned about my place of business. I'm always concerned for the well-being of the customers, but sometimes people come in and they're somewhat not concerned about anything other than their well-being or their specific needs, and we'll find out later what that will be all about. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hoping we get plenty of business. So I'll come back tomorrow. I'll be doing some shows, and I'll inform you, listener, on how it worked out. And maybe I'll do a couple recordings, and I'll upload them and play them to see how, for the grand reopening's happening right now. Actually in 30 minutes. The restaurant opens at 12 o'clock, and we'll see how that opens up. I imagine they're going to have a busy lunch because I posted on social media, and there'll be it'll be a unique experience for them, and I'll have, maybe they'll call me in early. Who knows? So yesterday I did a live show, and it was one of the first times I ever got, and we've been doing the shows for 3 years. And the first time we've had someone just randomly come across the show, and that may be because more people are listening to podcasts. And there was a gentleman, Jay Ron from Nova Scotia, and he started conversing with me on chat. And I'm going to put something on there and say, would anybody like to chat? Would let me spell this right. Anybody like to ask a question? Oh, on air. On air. And that's what's out there right now. So we are live. And J-Ron, we were conversing back and forth. I had Steve on. Because it wasn't a very compelling discussion, but it was interesting that it was my first back and forth with someone on it in 3 years on it. Tens of thousands of downloads. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. And it turns out I don't know what they're seeing, because as we go further on in questions and answer with J-Ron, he says to me, "Are you guys 2 cooks?" And I said, 2 cooks? What the hell? What do you mean 2 cooks? And just from our conversation, we're 2 cooks. It says Washington, Virginia, 6 episodes per inhabitant. That was the title of the episode. And he says that's the only thing he saw. He didn't even see that it was Florida Keys Bartender. I said, well, I thought when you were listening to an episode that you saw the name of the show, but I just saw, it was apparent, he just saw the name of the episode. And I was wondering for 3 years, all I was trying to do was entice listeners to, expand our reach. not just in the Keys, not in South Florida, because there's a lot of people. When I started a podcast, there's a lot of people that like to come down here. A lot of people like to come and drink. A lot of people come. They used to come and ask me things as a bartender. Why wouldn't you ask me? You have a lot of questions when you come in a bar. Why don't you ask me if I have a podcast? I'm not doing anything other than talking to you now. You don't have to wait for me to get a drink. You have a drink available at home, I hope. So I realized when this J-Ron said this, that all the people saw when I did a live episode, at least when they're listening on the Spreaker Studio app or the Spreaker app, was titles. And some of the titles were All in the Family, What's a Margarita, Less Than Normal, Keys Cars, spelled with a K, Bug Hunt, referring to mini lobster season. Mini lobster season is not the season where you get mini lobsters. It's just a short season for the public to go and capture lobsters in Florida and the Keys in particular. And they call them bugs because the lobsters look a lot like cockroaches and stuff like that, because they just have antennas and the small spindly legs. They don't have big claws like you get on the northern lobsters. Mandy's hat. And I guess on their own, these episodes weren't compelling in title themselves. They shouldn't be. And maybe the conversations weren't compelling. But, for instance, one of the shows was called International Women's Day. If you look like by the title and go, oh my God, why would the hell would I turn on a show? And even if you knew it was Florida Keys Bartender, why would you turn on a show that said International Women's Day? And that's my dog barking right now, obviously, because she picks the most appropriate time to start barking at the cat. So on the show International Women's Day, I used to do a show with Bill Wissinger and Luke Glenn, two local musicians in the Keys. Bill was the sound guy and a co-host, and Luke would show up. He was another co-host. We did a lovely show talking about women, how we talked about misogyny, how women needed to be celebrated and stuff like that. Well, at the end of the show, Luke just started singing a song he wrote called I Love Pussy. And the lyrics were pretty much what he got. I love pussy, 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 pussy. That was the whole thing. At the end of the show, it wasn't just so you get the listener gets the idea. I did not create the show International Women's just to be ironic. I wanted the show to be, so three guys being respectful women. And Luke, we had to spend the whole show. Luke even spent like 10, 15 minutes talking about how he really respected his sister, who had a PhD, and how important she was in his family, and how important it was in his life. And then at the end of the show, which we did, I think, it wasn't much for content, let's say, but it was respectful, wasn't misogynistic. What he just put a big pile of dog shit on top of that show by, negating everything was said before by breaking into a song. And it was his song. And I had to stop it. I didn't stop him singing. I said, just sing your song. And then I was ending the show. Instead of ending the show there, I went and apologized. But like the attention-seeking whore that I am, I kept that part in it because I said, well, that's funny. Now, I didn't plan on that, but I thought that would be funny. But there was no reason for anybody coming across the show. They'd have to read it in the title or something like that. I guess I could have rechanged the name instead of International Women's Day. I love pussy. But wouldn't the just 99.8% of the show was not about pussy. It was about the respect for women and stuff like that. So that would have been misrepresentation. But it may have gotten more people to listen, but I don't think they would have stayed with it. So there's many things I try to do to drive exposure of the show. Yeah, I tried to make the episodes somewhat titillating, but I hadn't let to do the titles have to do with what we're talking about during the show. And I begin the thing with the views from the Keys right now. It's hot, humid. It's a little cloudy. We've had some beautiful weather. I went yesterday was nice and sunny, a little steamy, but we're in our rainy season right now. But we just talk about Keys things. I talked about the roadblock. I talked about the bars opening. Sometimes we talk about fishing. I'm not much of a fishing guy, so I do that. I put in the titles. Some things are titillating, but the titles usually have to do back with the show. So I tried that, and I tried social media. Oh my God, social media, just posting things, putting them on Facebook. I have maybe like on my personal account, I have like 4,000 to 5,000 friends, which, it's not really friends, it's people who you connect with. And then I have on my page for the Keys Bartender, I have about 1,500, and on Twitter another 1,500, and some 800 on Instagram. And you try to drive it that way, get people to listen who are just following you on social media, and say maybe check in. And the way I view it, and I'll just say this once, all I need to get is 1%. I feel I have a 1% appeal. Not say the top 1%. I'm not saying the top or the bottom 1%. There's 1% of the people that have an interest in some of the things I say. I don't believe it's a broad appeal. This isn't Frontline. This isn't Vice. It's in all those things. I don't have a locked-in segment, but there is a 1% of people out there that have a similar outlook and a similar humor than I have. So that's what I try to meet in social media. Now you pay hundreds of dollars boosting shows to as many people to get. It's more of a shotgun approach. It's like throwing a bunch of Christ. It's the business card approach, where you're always laying out business cards. Boom, boom, business card here, business card there. If you're a realtor, if for every 1,000 business cards you get one lead that leads to a sale, that's worth it. Well, that's no good. That's no good when it comes to podcasts, because you need to earn what a realtor makes. You need to have, let's say, 20,000 listeners a month. 20,000 listeners a month to earn what a average realtor makes. Maybe 30,000, and you get that, or 50. Actually, it's more like 50,000. 50,000 listeners a month. You get to like a medium-sized realtor. Now, once you get to 100,000, 200,000, then you start talking real money. And that's what I was attempting on doing, because the more listeners I get, the more time I can spend it, better equipment I can get, and do that. So then I tried, so that we know social media doesn't work. I tried interviewing people. And my theory behind interviewing people was, I get some people and reach out, someone in Buffalo, some bartender here, somebody here. This is a couple of years ago. Now I interview people because it's pertinent. Like I have a reporter, Jill Zyman. She was a Florida Keys reporter, and we talked about the closing of the Keys and what it meant to businesses and the people down here. And then I spoke to the mayor of Key West. This is recently, but a couple of years ago I was talking to bartenders and bringing people in from different places, just trying to get their friends to listen. It was a slow approach, you know what I mean? Get there, hey, at least their mom's going to listen. But her mom's not going to be regular. So you get a mom to listen, or friends to listen, stuff like that. They're only going to listen to that show. So what I needed was, if I had someone on, hopefully to have 1,000 people that follow them, and maybe 10 of them stay listeners. That's the best case scenario. And then I try to use interesting pictures. See, titillating topic and a good picture. And there's a bunch of free pictures out there that aren't royalty based. So that probably worked the best, I think. if I put that, and I started noticing with uh, the the right titles, but every so often it's just see a huge spike in listenership, and it could be for many different reasons. A lot of times it's when someone's coming into the bar and they find out, hey, your bartender has a podcast, and vice versa. And people that listen to podcasts and they come in the keys and say, "Oh, I know the bartender of this podcast works at this bar, so I'm going to look for them." And then you see them and you reinforce it, and they download every episode. I have right now, it's episode 284. I actually have over 300 episodes. Um, they're not all golden, I understand of it. Some of them I call bronze or copper. But, so I realize now that and also, what did I try to do? Oh, this is the most. I'm shameless with promotion. Now, there's some things I will not beg for listenership. I understand that. Some people come and say, "Hey, Jim, just provide fucking consistent content. Spend time doing it. To make the sound quality better, and your voice will show. The growth will just occur on its own. It'll be organic." Well, me, I just try to do things the hard way. So I decided my last thing was I noticed one of the aspects of using a podcasting app is a online application where I publish through called Spreaker, and they give me statistics, and the statistics tell me not only, and I don't know how consistent, because my feeds, use a feed, and the feed goes out to iTunes, podcast, all these different iHeartRadio, Spotify, and maybe 20 different other podcasting apps. Now, I don't know if they're all tracked. I'm not exactly sure if they're all tracked and if I get everything. But what I've noticed is that I'm about triple what it was last year. Triple the downloads, triple the listeners. And if I do that one more time, then we're in the clear. I end up showing up. I'm snapping my fingers right now. Bing, bang, boom, bam. I'm all over the place. So what I noticed was it also gave me geographic locations where people are listening from. It tells me town. And I said, well, yeah, it's great. I got listeners in Chicago. Got listeners in Philadelphia. Got listeners in New Jersey, Connecticut, New York. Right now I noticed I had a huge, what was the one that came in? Oh my God. Like I said, it's the older thing I can't remember stuff. Mount Sinai, New York. Not Mount Sinai Medical in Manhattan or wherever it is, but on northern Long Island. I had a bunch of downloads. And Washington, a couple days ago, Washington, Virginia. Well, a couple weeks ago, I noticed in Europe, in Holland, and I said I would never repeat it, but I'm going to say it. Laterdorp, I did a 6-show blitz where I mentioned in each show a 5-minute segment with a picture of this small town of 26,000 in South Holland, Laterdorp. And I think, wow, I have it. If I can get 100 people from Laterdorp to listen to the show, I would say 100 people, that's, Christ, what is that? Out of 20,000, that's 0.3%. No, it's 100 times that, it's 10,000. 100 times 100 is 10,000. So yeah, around 0.4%. 0.4% from there. I could just start week after week building up 100 listeners in different places. And this is the way I saw it. It's like getting Nova Scotia. We have J-Ron from Nova Scotia. And there's another place in Canada, Ottawa, smaller towns, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, I think that is. That's from a TV show, Bosom Buddies. Um, Utah, boom, hit that. Washington State, Oregon, California, Nevada, New Mexico, hit just some places out there. I always concentrate on the Midwest and the Northeast because that's where a lot of people come down for vacation from those areas. So that one might be the best way to do it. And also some European countries because they come here to dive. I concentrated on one where English is either the primary language or a huge section. For some reason, I always get French people every so often listening to the show. I met some French people when Irma happened. So who the fuck knows how that happened? Oh, and every so often I tried a little thing of Iran, but I figure if I had a decent listener in Iran, the Revolutionary Guard would end up killing them if I had a decent listenership there. I just started doing a Farsi section. That's a native language of Iran, Persian. I could do a Persian podcast from the Florida Keys, the number one Persian podcast from the Florida Keys. That would be something. But then we get Lithuania, and I also see big spikes in Poland and Novodnik. Novodnik, is that the name of it? Whatever town, Krasny, Sanjeshu, not in Zakopane. I did have some listeners in Zakopane previously, but yeah, I'm probably, I bet I'm in the top 20 in my category. I'm in the top 20 in Poland, even though I never get Polish stats. That every so often I get an email from a company that says, "Oh, here's your stats in Switzerland or the Russian Federation," stuff like that. And they'll show at one point it says you're number 20 in comedy interview. Comedy interview is a very specific. That's a very specific category. You can say comedy, and there's a sub one called the comedy interview. We have people on the interview, and it's supposed to be funny. So it's like a talk show. So if that location thing, which seems to somewhat be paying off, but may not pay off as much as and it doesn't look like the title does. I'm going to actually change the title of it. Instead of the title of the show, what do they call it? A chat with two sex workers. I'm just going to say, and then put farce, because that didn't quite work. And I said, but in the coming weeks, if that had worked, I would have used the title for one show. It's called A Hand Job from a Meter Maid, bartending at the Playboy Mansion, free pot, because a lot of listeners, I imagine a lot of listeners like free pot who listen to this show. They got to be drinkers, even though I'm sober. Doesn't mean that you have to be. Don't have a problem. If you have a problem, there's a place to go. I just need to say that. That's a disclaimer. Light up butt plugs, which is actually a thing. On Twitter, a friend of mine on Twitter mentioned that she found out that there's a light up butt plugs out there. And later on, we'll find out. I'm going to be doing a show from one of our local adult stores, and that'll be one of the questions I do ask. So I probably I'll see if I can use that as a title. If not, then the name of the place, and then say that. But who knows? But there's the other one. We shaved Britney Spears' head again, which I hope people would take literally. How about Zoom orgies? Or for the desperate out there, because some of the dating shows, I used to give dating advice for people. It was called Getting Dates with Your Avatar, because I noticed I even set up a new avatar. Facebook established a new way of setting up your own avatar. So if you joined now, and I don't think if there's no listeners, if you're not here chatting, or you could be listening now because you haven't chatted with me, you may have figured out that the title a chat with two sex workers, it ain't happening. So if you went on specifically for that, I'd say go and download your, go to your favorite porn site, grab your Jergens lotion, go into your private area and do what you need to do to take care of yourself. That ain't happening today. But what is happening today, I found a new outlet, and it is, I kind of enjoy Reddit for some of the disturbing things. Uh, I find these online questions sometimes people ask disturbing, meaning some people ask things they should already know. But then other ones, I don't know if they're real or not, but they're still funny. And this is one. Um, the this one, this guy enraged these girls' parents by pretending not to know what a potato is. And some of you listeners may have heard this or not, but it's from a couple of years ago. I'm going to read this to you. Let me tell you that I have made a bad mistake this evening. My girlfriend, parentheses, who let me tell you is only my second girlfriend of all time, close parentheses, said I'm invited to dinner with her and her parents, and I was very aghast, nervous, and bashful to be invited to such a situation. But I knew it must be done. And let me explain to the reader. I'm going to, the listener, I'm the reader, that I'm going to read just the way he wrote it. And some of these aren't written the right way, but then you should understand because sometimes I don't speak the right way. I met them. Okay, I'm back. I met them nicely. I should tell you. And it started off in a good way. The idea slapped my mind that I should do a comic bit to make a good impression and become known to them as a person who is amusing. I did that. Now I'm off the topic again. I went to see this a friend of mine, Jack. He had this beautiful sister, Marianne, and I was invited to the house for dinner after I started dating his sister. And during dinner, they had Italian food, and we were sitting there, and we're middle eating, and we're yucking it up, and I had the family going. The father was amused, the mother was amused, and then halfway through eating, and I could tell we were eating Italian. They were Irish American, but they had Italian food, and there was a significant amount of garlic in the meal. So, and for some reason, the subject of talking about things people can't stand, and I said, "Oh well, I don't know if I can't stand certain because I'm kind of restricted from trying new things." Because I have these certain allergies. And they go, what allergies do you have? I said, well, for one, I have a garlic allergy. I get deathly ill when I have garlic. It takes me about an hour. And everyone put down their fork. And I have, if people know you, I have my one skill. Obviously, you're listening to a podcast. Maybe I can't tell a joke. Maybe I can't do an impression. But what I can do is I can say something with complete sincerity in my face. And when I did that, the mothers just started freaking out. And I was put into a bad place, meaning I put myself in a bad place. And I had to apologize the rest of the day. I wouldn't go in there. They were ready to give me an expectorant or whatever to get me out, to get me sick and stuff like that. So we're back to the story. To make a good impression, become known to them as a person who is amusing. When I saw the baked potatoes were served, I got the idea that it would be very good if I pretended I did not know what potatoes was. It's actually what potatoes were. That would be funny. Well, let me tell you, backfired on my face. I'll tell you how. So first, when the potato became on my plate, like it materialized, I acted very interesting. I showed an expression on my face so as to seem that I was confused, astounded, but in a restrained way, curious yet interested. They did notice and seemed confused, but did not remark. So I asked them, "This looks very interesting. What is this?" They stared at me. The mother said, "It's a baked potato." And I was saying, "Oh, interesting. A baked ... What is it again?" And she was like, "A potato." And I was like, a potato. Oh, interesting. Never heard of a potato. Looks pretty good. And then they didn't see I was clowning, but thought I really did not know what is a potato. So I knew I would be very shamed, humiliated, depressed, and disgusted if I admitted to making a bad joke. Which, not true. He wouldn't have been that shamed because he said, "Oh, that was a bad joke. I'm so apologize. I was so nervous." He could have done that right then. So what I did was to act as if it was not a joke, but I committed to the act of pretending I didn't know what a potato is. So he's deeper. You know what I mean? It's like when you're home, if you're married or you're a kid, and if you're married and you were told your wife you'd be out till 8, you come home at 1 in the morning, or the same thing with your kid, and you're told your parent, you think, your friends say, well, you're late. How can you be more late? Well, this is more late. 5 hours is more late. That's when you get in more trouble. This went on. Okay, I'm back to this. This went on for a bit, and my girlfriend was acting very confused and embarrassed by my fucked up antics, in quotation marks. And then the more insistent I was about not knowing what a potato is was when them parents starting thinking I did know what a potato was. Well, let me tell you, I had to commit 100% at this time. When I would not admit to knowing what a potato was, the father especially began to get annoyed. At one point he said something like, "Enough is enough. You're fucking with us. Admit it." And I said, "Sir, before today, I never heard of a potato. I still don't know what a potato is, other than some kind of food. I don't know what to tell you." Well, let me tell you, he got very annoyed. I decided to take a bite of the potato, and when I did, I made a high-pitched noise and said, "Tastes very strange!" Exclamation point. That is when the father started yelling at me. The mother kept saying, "What are you doing?" And my girlfriend went to some other room. Finally, the father said I should, in quotation marks, get the fuck out of his house, close quotation marks. And I said it was irrational to treat me like this just because I've never heard of a potato before. Well, let me tell you, he didn't take that kindly. Now, in text messages, I've been telling my girlfriend I really don't know what a potato is. The only way I can ever get out of this is for them to buy that I don't know what a potato is. I wish I never started, but I can't go back. I think she'll break up with me anyway. Okay, now, if I told you about Reddit before, and almost anything when someone says something, the best thing is the comments. Dear Abby, if they could have done this in Dear Abby, having the people that were reading it comment, they're the best. Invite your girlfriend to meet your parents. Have your father take her aside and ask if potatoes were served at dinner with her parents. When she says yes, he looks alarmed and mutters something about wanting to keep them away from him and never mentions the subject again. That's great. Oh, here's another one. When confronted about this horrible joke, insists it never happened with the same level of commitment. Maybe they will just think you have a brain disorder. That's a good one. I like it. Oh my God. Continue to do this. Continue to keep on doing this thing. Something different every time you see them. That's if you get invited back. So what is this giant chair thing we're all sitting on called again? Oh, a couch. It's very interesting. Pretend the dinner didn't even happen, another person says. Of course I know what potatoes are. I've always liked them. What dinner with your parents? Well, let me tell you that I was home that night. Oh, I like that one. Okay, the Fuhrer of Felines wrote, "Send them a bouquet of potatoes as an apology. But on the card, write, 'Enjoy your potatoes,' quotation marks, potatoes in quotes, as if you still don't really believe they're real." Ooh, I love that one. That's a good one. This Hurl Carl wrote, "This is some straight up George Costanza shit." So, there's a lot of TIFUs, but I like this. Easily, George Costanza, if your listeners are Seinfeld fans, when he had to commit to having a house in the Hamptons, the parents didn't believe him, and he kept on committing, and he went going back and forth, and even though he never got a house in the Hamptons, he said to get out of a obligation of his deceased fiance's parents inviting him to a memorial service, he ended up driving the parents all the way out, hours onto Long Island, to a non-existent home in the Hamptons. So that's the Reddit thread. I love that stuff. I love weird shit. I do it all the time at the bar, and we will be doing more and more into the future. And I apologize if you did come on the show just to hear about the private chat between two sex workers, but we don't have it. But I did post on the picture a fundraiser for people of sex workers in Tampa that have been put out because of all the bars and clubs closed and social distancing, that there is a flyer, and I don't know how genuine that is about donating to it, but they do have a PayPal and Venmo contacts if you'd like to send money to out-of-work sex workers, which, because of the governor's orders, I imagine will be back on their backs. No pun intended. No pun intended. I respect what they do. It's just not something we have on. Eventually, maybe we will have somebody, if there are any sex workers that listen to the show, I would love to interview you. We could talk about some things. We could do it anonymously. Obviously, do it anonymously. And it is a comedy show, but so you please have something on there that's interesting. If you do, since I have you, I just don't know how many people are listening live. I'll find out when I'm done. But if you could follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr. I'm on Tumblr. I never mentioned it. It's Keys Bartender on Tumblr. And I post my podcast there. I post on Twitter. I don't post as much on Instagram, but I'm going to start posting more on Instagram. But Instagram's mainly a visual app. But since I have the pictures on, so maybe the title of the show will interest people into it. And I realize, some people will be put off. But then again, I may get a certain amount of exposure to them. I mean, it could be kind of the exposure that you think you do if you're a person that is, the people that are arrested for exposing themselves, thinking they'll get attention. Am I doing that? I don't think so, because I'm not really offending anyone, because I did mark down this as explicit. And hopefully, so when people say they were offended by it, I didn't represent myself as a show for people who are that easily offended. And the nice thing about podcasts, you don't have to be that way. There's podcasts out there that are very offensive. There's white supremacists, there's racist, there's male chauvinist. I'm none of those things. But I am looking for an outlet. So thank you very much. This is Jim the Keys Bartender. I'll be back to you tomorrow. I'll try to have some sound bites for you that happen tonight while I'm working. See how it works out. So go to the website. Follow us on Keys Bartender on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Tumblr. I have a website, www.keysbartender.com. If you have any show ideas, call or text me. My phone number is available on the website, www.keysbartender.com, or you can email me at jim@keysbartender.com. Thank you very much, and have a great day.